The day the helicopter's shadow swallowed the garage floor, everyone thought it was the end of a poor mechanic's story. They didn't know it was the beginning of the truth. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of hidden sacrifices, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Grandma Dearie. Stories like this remind us that not every hero wears a uniform every day. The morning Daniel Hayes lost his job began like any other. The scent of engine oil clung to his blue coveralls, his worn gloves gripping a wrench as he worked under the hood of a dented sedan. He was 34, a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone after losing his wife to illness 3 years earlier. The garage was not just his workplace, it was his survival. Every paycheck paid for Lily's school books, her simple blue dresses, and the small apartment where laughter tried to survive grief. But that morning, the atmosphere felt different. The sleek black car that rolled into the service bay didn't belong among the rusted bumpers and chipped paint. From it stepped Victoria Steele, the newly appointed CEO of Steele Automotive Group, the corporation that had recently acquired the struggling garage. She was sharp, composed, dressed in a tailored red suit that contrasted harshly with the grease-stained walls. Her presence silenced the usual clatter of tools. Daniel noticed the way she observed everything, like she was calculating what was worth keeping and what needed to be erased. He wiped his hands, trying to appear confident despite the exhaustion in his eyes. Lily, who had come to the garage after school because he couldn't afford a babysitter, stood quietly nearby, clutching her small backpack and watching the unfamiliar woman with curiosity. Victoria's decision came swiftly. The garage would undergo restructuring, inefficiencies would be removed, positions would be cut. Daniel's name was on that list. When she told him he was being let go, it felt like the ground shifted beneath him. Years of loyalty, overtime shifts, and sleepless nights meant nothing against spreadsheets and profit margins. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, swallowing the humiliation burning in his chest. Lily looked up at him with wide, confused eyes, sensing the change before understanding it. The next few days were the hardest Daniel had faced since becoming a widower. Rejection emails piled up. Bills remained unpaid. He sold his old watch, a gift from his late wife, to cover groceries. At night, when Lily slept, he sat by the window, staring into the darkness, wondering how long he could protect her from the storm gathering around them. What no one in that garage knew was that Daniel had once lived a very different life. Before grief forced him into quiet obscurity, before diapers and hospital corridors replaced medals and missions, Daniel Hayes had served as a Navy aviation specialist. He had worked in classified rescue operations, repairing and maintaining helicopters used in life-saving missions across dangerous waters. He had left the service not out of weakness, but out of love, choosing his family over accolades. He never spoke about it. To him, fatherhood was the greater honor. Meanwhile, Victoria faced pressures of her own. The company she inherited was drowning in debt. Investors demanded rapid transformation. She believed that emotion clouded leadership, that hard decisions built strong empires. Yet she couldn't shake the image of Daniel's daughter standing silently in that vast garage, as if she understood that adults with power could reshape her world in a single sentence. A week after the layoffs, chaos erupted. A sudden emergency call came to Steele Automotive's headquarters. One of the company's newly contracted military maintenance deals had hit a crisis. A Navy helicopter assigned for a coastal rescue had experienced mechanical complications mid-operation. The pilots managed to land it in an open industrial area, ironically, near the very garage that had just been downsized. The thunder of rotor blades shook the windows. Employees rushed outside as the massive aircraft descended, its presence commanding attention and fear. Victoria arrived moments later, her heels striking the pavement with urgency. This was the kind of contract that could either save or destroy her company. Among the gathering crowd stood Daniel, who had returned to collect the last of his tools. Lily held his hand tightly as dust swirled around them. When his eyes locked onto the helicopter, something inside him shifted. The stance of the aircraft, the sound of the engine strain, he recognized it instantly. This wasn't just machinery. It was a language he once spoke fluently. Without hesitation, he moved forward. Some employees tried to stop him, reminding him he no longer worked there. But the urgency in his expression silenced them. Victoria watched, torn between authority and instinct. Daniel approached the grounded helicopter with steady focus. Years seemed to fall away as he examined the rotor assembly and engine housing. His hands, though rough from civilian labor, moved with precision and memory. He identified the fault, a compromised hydraulic coupling that, if not addressed immediately, could risk future catastrophic failure. The Navy officers on site were skeptical at first, but when Daniel detailed the exact model specifications and corrective steps without reference manuals, their expressions changed. One officer stepped forward, recognition dawning. Daniel Hayes was not just a mechanic. He was the former chief petty officer who had once led their most complex maintenance unit. Word spread quickly. Victoria stood frozen as the truth unfolded in front of her like a revelation she hadn't earned. The inefficient employee she had dismissed was the very expert capable of safeguarding a multi-million-dollar contract and, more importantly, human lives. Daniel worked for hours under the fatting afternoon light. Lily sat nearby, watching her father not as a struggling mechanic but as a quiet hero. When the helicopter finally roared back to life, lifting smoothly into the sky, the crowd erupted in applause. The sound wasn't just for technical success, it was for